will be online with audio and video for whoever wants to tune in. And really, I met you here with us. Will be online with audio and video for whoever wants to tune in. And really, I met you about a week or two ago at an event, and what I wanted to bring to the audience and share is you have some life experiences in the service, and you're also a pastor, a reverend, and you were in the Army.
Yes.
My father was in the Army as well, so that speaks to how I grew up and my family. But you had some amazing stories to share about what happened in the Army and how you were serving people in the Army. So I'd love for you to be able to share that. And we'll kind of I'll get to kind of like a main point of why we're going that direction a little bit, if you don't mind. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and tell your story about, what your, how your journey was getting into that space, and then what happened when you got there.
Sure. Yeah, well, it started 22 years ago. I was seeking to go back to school. And I went to college right out of high school. Went to Owens University, which is a theological, biblical Christian school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My father told us when we were growing up, when you go to college, that's where you're going. And so that's where I went. And it was a pleasurable experience. It was a place of really restoration for me. Owens University is a beautiful school, beautiful campus. But when I went, I was really under duress growing up as a young man. And so the atmosphere was very challenging growing up. And so when I went away to college, especially that particular university, it was really a place of restoration. And so in the midst of that, I was just really healing from a lot of things. And but as fate would have it, my dad ended up coming to the school, and I was like, wow, I came to college to get away from parents.
Right?
So I wound up saying, I can't, I needed my space at this time in my life. And so I ended up leaving with the intentions of coming back, maybe in 6 months or a year, whatever. But as fate would have it, I went on, I met my wife and got married. And so I'm young, 23, 22 at the time. And so school took a backseat, because I had to take care of my family. And so that was a desire of mine. But I knew that, I don't know when that opportunity would come again. So fast forward 15 years, I'm 34 years old, and I said, maybe this would be a good time to go back to school. And so I said a prayer, and the very next day I'm walking through the mall, and the Army recruit says, you need to join the Army. I said, man, you're not talking to me. I'm not joining the military, and I'm not interested in joining the military. I really I don't have an interest. So when I turned to walk away from him, he says, well, I got my master's degree in the military, and the military paid for it. So that pulled me back into the conversation. And so I started saying, well, listen, I wouldn't leave California. He said, you don't have to. You join Army Reserves. 1 week out of a month, you can be here, you can be stationed here. So I just kept throwing things at him, and every time I threw something at him, he had an answer for it. And so to make a long story short, I ended up joining. And it was about 2 years later that I started going to school, and I was able to, get from the associate's to the doctorate degree. And I was very fortunate for that. But I never understood why, it was for me to take that route. And I think I'll say this, in life, we want to accomplish certain things that we have in our hearts and minds, things that we, even perhaps as children, we have an innate feeling of what we're destined to do.
Right.
But in the processes of life, like I had a desire to finish school, never knew I thought it'd lead me to have to go to the military.
Yeah.
Right. But in life, I think that one of the keys to life is don't judge the process.
That's good.
And when opportunities come, don't say no to the opportunities, especially even if you don't understand it.
Right.
So I didn't understand why would the Army present itself to me, and I just want to get a degree.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense.
Right.
It makes sense at all.
Yeah.
But we talk about fate, and we talk about opportunity. We talk about the window of opportunity. And sometimes it comes at a season and time in your life when you least expect it.
True.
And then it takes a certain amount of humility to be able to step in that phase of your life that you don't understand because you've never done it before.
Agreed.
And so that was my initiating into the Army. And then in the process of getting the education and serving other soldiers, serving soldiers that were younger than me, I had the opportunity to spread life experience. I had the opportunity to lead. I had the opportunity to learn about leadership. Now, I'm getting another type of education that I got along with getting an academic education. I was also getting another type of education, which is selfless service, respect, honor, selfless service, integrity. I was getting also another education. And so the Army afforded me to get something that I could learn through a book, right?
Absolutely.
Really learn what it meant to have teamwork, that you have to have teamwork to serve in the military.
Oh, yeah.
All right? There's no I in team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you learn the way up is the way down.
Right.
The way down is to humble yourself. You have to humble yourself just to serve. So we think in terms of leadership is that I'm the boss. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, where the boss is, the higher you go, the more responsible you are for the people that you're leading.
Right.
And so that's an aspect of leadership, I think, that it's about serving others and it's about being humble.
Definitely.
It's about, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I remember you sharing the other night when, there was a time where you were there in the barracks, and you also were, so you, at one point you got deployed.
Yeah, twice. I deployed twice, yes.
Now, was it, I'm guessing during one of those deployments that you had the opportunity to serve in this aspect of hearing these guys around you in the barracks who were going through some really, struggles in their life where, it's really the rubber hitting the road and putting into, you go through boot camp, there's the training and you think, I've got this, let's go, let's go handle this.
Sure.
And, I'm sure everyone has this, mind space of like, I'm not like everybody else, I'm going to go out and I'm going to kick butt and I'm going to, take over the world and, all those things.
Yes.
But when it comes to it, when you're there in the barracks by yourself at night, away from your families, if you can share a little bit about what, you helped with as far as serving those men. Sure.
When I joined at 34 years old, I was a senior person there, because of course in boot camp, most of those young men are right out of high school.
Yeah.
So they have, a lot of them never been away from home, right?
Right.
First time away from home. So it was a very shocking experience, and it's supposed to be, right? But with some of the young men, it was overwhelming, right? Same with anything in life, right?
Of course.
Life happens on us all, right? But this particular situation is boot camp. And so some of these kids were threatening suicide. Some of these kids they were breaking, right? They just didn't see how they were going to make it. So me being a gentleman that was much mature, older, I'd gone through life, I could take it in stride, right?
Yeah.
And understand that this is just part of the process. But for some of them, it was just so much of a shock that they felt like, hey, I need to end my life because I can't take it. I can't, but that's what your mind will tell you, but you can't. So, I think it's a lesson in life that what I chose to do was to have a Bible study at night. At Lights Out was 2100, 9 o'clock. So I said, well, listen, for those of you that want to come and just get some encouragement and so forth, you're welcome to come at 9 o'clock. And I'll put a pin here by saying this. I think that when you are in a position where you have something to give to your family, something to give to your loved ones, something to give where you see there is a need and you have the answer, even though the systems that they will say, well, you're not supposed to be doing that, or, you know, sometimes you have to bend the rules a little bit, and you have to be willing to put yourself in harm's way to help other people, even when the rules say, right?
Yeah.
But when the intentions are that you're saving lives, when the intention is that it's for the good, sometimes you have to throw the rules out of the window and say, let it be what it is, but there are people to help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I put myself in harm's way because lights out at 9 o'clock, but I see these soldiers, I hear them crying out for help.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, listen, meet me in the latrine at 9 o'clock. Now, was I breaking the rules? Yes. But I did it because there were lives at stake. It was more important that I help them than fear of getting caught by the drill sergeants.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So can't we make that applicable to life itself? Right?
Yeah. And I think that's something, you know, we all get to choose. Obviously, you know, we get to choose to do that, is push through the fear of what's going to happen in my life, in my situation, and the repercussions for me, in order to step outside the box and say, someone else is going through something, let me meet them where they are.
That's it. Absolutely. And so I started doing that, and lo and behold, you know, what is it, Murphy's Law? If something go bad, something will happen.
Yeah.
You know, so as fate would have it, the drill sergeant comes walking up the steps, comes up and says, where's the bay boss? And one young soldier that didn't come to the Bible study said, well, he's in the latrine having Bible study. He does it every night. And the drill sergeant, he just really got livid. He said, well, tell him the devil just arrived.
Oh my gosh.
So we had one of the soldiers that came, pulled it over and said, hey, listen, the drill sergeant wants to see you out there. And at that point, I knew it was going to be a long night.
Right.
Because I broke the rules, right? Lights out, 2100.
Yeah, they don't play. It's not a suggestion.
It's not a suggestion, right? But me being the senior leader, of course, I'm responsible. Say, hey, listen, let's go out and see what happens. But at that point, I really didn't know what to say to the drill sergeant. I just knew that I was doing a good deed.
Right. And
whatever the repercussions were, I was willing to take those repercussions because, why? Because lives were at stake.
Yeah.
Right? So I came out and I stood at parade rest, and he said, what are you doing with those soldiers? And just out of my mind and out of my heart, all I could say was that I'm praying for those soldiers and I'm praying for you. Now, when he heard those words, that I'm praying for the soldiers, I'm praying for you, I think it touched him in a different way, because he's a human being too. And I'm sure he's stressed out, that he's away from his family, that he can't be with his family because he's on the trail. He's up 22 hours a day. And so he thought about it and he said, keep on praying.
Yeah.
So I'll say this, I think, what is the moral of that story? Well, the moral of that story is follow your heart. Do what is right. Do what is right. Even if it seems like you're breaking the rules, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I compare it to if one of your sons were in a life and death situation, like let's say your house is burning down and your son is in the house and the firemen say, you can't go in there, the house is burning down. Well, I don't care.
Yeah. When you're talking about, you know, these guys that are away from their families, they're isolated, they're dealing, you know, they're physically exhausted, they're mentally exhausted, you know, socially they're dealing with people, and I know, you know, each branch of government boot camp is different, but I know in the Army, they don't play. They don't play. They have no hesitation of getting in your face, calling you every name in the book, you know, demeaning you, calling you things that you probably, it's some, you know, some people have never heard before.
Exactly.
Some words that you've never heard uttered before, and you know, and you know, they're really in your face. I mean, they're there to break you mentally, physically, socially, across all aspects. And there's a purpose to it, a process. Because, yeah, out on the front lines, you're going to be experiencing things that no civilian will ever experience. And some people, as you said, like, some people get to the front line and act a certain way, and it shifts, you know, like where their headspace is, and everyone has a different breaking point. this month is of September is Suicide Prevention Month. And one of the reasons why I was so quick to kind of like, it just, there was divine timing, I believe,
yes.
you know, at the point where we met. And, you know, my name is Faith. And I did grow up in a Christian household. And, you know, I believe that even though different people have different faiths of different religions, you know, I think faith is one of those things that kind of unites us. You know, we believe in a higher purpose. We believe in a higher being. And no matter where we are in that space, you know, we all have to deal with whether or not we believe what we think we believe. And then when it comes down to when something gets challenged, like in your situation, when you're, you know, you could have got, if that officer hadn't, you know, just said, go ahead and keep on praying, like at that, in that moment, like you really had no idea, you know, what was going to happen to you or the repercussions. So in that space of people that are going through things and dealing with things, I think business owners and entrepreneurs are a non-civilian in a sense, if you would, because civilians that, you know, have a 9-to-5 job, you know, not that they have less struggles and issues and you know, things like that, they don't have the same level of responsibility and pressures that entrepreneurs and business owners have. So I really kind of, you know, attribute business owners and entrepreneurs with a non-civilian per se, because they see things on the front line that a lot of people don't see or experience. And there's a few business owners, entrepreneurs that have taken their own life. Kate Spade was a designer, made, you know, billions of dollars and took her own life. The CFO of Bed Bath & Beyond took his life a couple weeks ago. He was involved in a lawsuit with company-related things, and his wife watched him jump out of the building and commit suicide. And I think of, you know, times during the Great Depression when banks were, you know, locking up and closing, you know, there was a lot of suicide there. Because everyone thinks, you know, oh my gosh, you know, I'm broke now. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And I feel like business owners and entrepreneurs, we spend so much time making things happen, figuring things out, trying to make sure we can pay the bills, or, you know, our teams that we're leading are taken care of, you know, because a lot of times we're not just responsible for our own, you know, bills and families, we're also responsible for our team. You know, they all have families and children and moms and dads and grandparents and grandmothers that, you know, we're helping them pay their bills as well. So, you know, like when COVID hit and everything shifted and there was so much of everything shut down, you know, restaurants were shut down, you know, you couldn't go to the mall and go shopping, you know, everything was just isolated. You know, there was a lot going on in that space. So if you could talk a little bit about keeping, in the business world and in, you know, when you're out on the front line, there's a lot of isolation. You know, your mindset's getting attacked constantly. You know, physically, you have a lot going on. And business owners, you know, we're sometimes working 12, 15, 20 hours a day, you know, pushing that boundary to get stuff done, to pay the bills, to make sure, you know, we're successful and, you know, our margins are in the right space. So if you wanted to kind of talk through, if you were counseling someone that's going through all of those pressures, you know, as if they're on that front line, whether it's in business, you know, sometimes it's personally, but what type of things would you say to someone who's dealing with all of those pressures, basically like in the latrine when you're talking with these people and kind of going through all this that they're going on and all the pressures that they're feeling, and they're just like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. I don't want any of this pressure. I don't want this responsibility. I don't want any of this chaos. What would you say to them?
I would give key elements that I think are very important. And I think that, we're all composed of spirit, mind, soul, and body. And all those components need to be fed adequately. You spoke of faith, whatever your faith is. I think that we all need something that is beyond us, that we have trust and faith. I'm a Christian, so I believe in God. And that was a large part of my, that grounded me. That's spiritual. So you have that spiritual component that we have to deal with. And then we have that emotional component. I didn't learn until later in my life of emotional IQ. There's an emotional IQ that we have. There's an emotional tank that we need to be filled every day. Our emotions are very important. I grew up in the era that, sticks and stones may break my bones.
Right.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's the first thing from the truth. Your emotions need to be fed with positivity, and you need to be touched and felt with other people that love you, that can show attrition for you, that can show compassion for you, that you show compassion and attrition. So it's important for your emotions to be fed from the family, with friends, surrounding yourself with people that will feed into you and feed you good vibes or good affirmations. But I'll say it starts with you. So the emotions need to be fed, and then the importance of relationships is very important. Isolation is dangerous, and that's one of the things that sometimes people, when the pressure of life comes on, somebody told me that being an entrepreneur was like combat sports, and I can see that. It's almost like being a soldier. You have to be. You have to toughen up. You have to go the extra mile, because it all rests on you. Right. Everything rests on your shoulders. So if you don't make a sale, you're not gonna make any money. Right. You can't feed your family. So you're always under the gun to perform every day. It's like a policeman or whatever. You're out on you risking your life every day. Right. And so it's important that you are not isolated. You don't allow yourself to be isolated, and you purposely have people in your life. You have mentors, you have friends that you can grab a hold to, that you are accountable to. You have accountability. It's important that I say the three phases of relationships you should have. You should have your mentors in your life that you can call and say, hey, listen, I'm going through something. Can you give me some advice? Right. You should have 2 or 3 of those, right? People that you can go to and talk to and call anytime. And then you need to have peers in your life. Peers that you guys are competing with one another, but it's good. You're encouraging one another. In the military, we call it battle buddy. Yeah. You need a battle buddy. Right. Everybody needs a battle buddy to say, hey, we're in this together, man. We're going to go back home together. We're going to go here together. We're coming back together. And you set goals, and you say, hey, listen, while I'm out here in deployment, I'm going to go to school. We're going to stay fit. We're going to get up early in the morning. We're going to work out at 6 o'clock. So you need a battle buddy to go with you through the trenches of life, through the pressures of life. So you're not alone. So if you get a little weak, they can say, hey, get up. Let's stay focused. Okay. And then you need people that you're mentoring. You need other people. You need to give back. You need to help somebody else. Definitely. Right. And then your physical body is important. It's another element. Your physical body is when I was deployed to Iraq and Kuwait, when I went to Kuwait, I was over 3,000, total about 11,000 soldiers, right? I mean, I was in CIC. We had the brigade level. We had the 4 battalions underneath us. So I was responsible for logistics. It was 24/7 ops. Yeah. So 24 hours, I had 3 shifts, and I had 21 soldiers working under me. So in essence, I was responsible for having 24/7. Yeah. There were many times I go lay down for a few hours, get back up at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, check on the staff. Yeah. So it's constant pressure. And I learned real quick that I needed to exercise every day. I needed to get up every morning before a day and run, do physical fitness. Because the body, there are endorphins that are released when you run. There are stresses that are released. So it's very important that you take care of your spirit, soul, mind, and body. all those components that you have to be like, your body's a machine, and you have to keep it well oiled at all times. When pressures are on, you have to maintain this spirit, this soul, and this body. So that means that I don't care how busy you get, you got to have me time.
Yeah.
You have to have time when you run some hot water and you turn the lights down low and you get a candle and you relax. Yeah. You have to have time when you read a book. You have time when you work out. Because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of other people?
Right.
And it doesn't matter how much pressure you're on, you have to have me time. You have to invest in yourself, and you have to have others that you're accountable to that invest in you. Mm-hmm. Now, how does suicide come? It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a period of time when a person neglects themselves. Excuse me, they neglect themselves emotionally. They neglect themselves spiritually. They physically neglect themselves. They don't exercise. And over time, what happens? The negative starts screaming louder. You're alone. There are no answers. There's no hope for you. Mm-hmm. That's the information that's feeding you, because you're not taking the time to feed yourself. Right. And then there's a saying that you can overcompensate. You got to understand that, it's a team effort, and you can't be all things to all people. I think people get in this thing that they gotta be the savior. No, you gotta save yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just like when you're on an airplane, right? What does the attendant do? She'll say, first, put your mask on, right, first, and then you help the person next to you put their mask on. Yeah. Most people are probably apt to say, let me help you put your mask on, right, forgetting themselves. Yeah. So when we talk about suicide, when we talk about people collapsing under pressure, is because a lot of it is because they neglect themselves. And that's the first thing. You must monitor and maintain your own self-health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. It's very important. I learned real quick that if I were going to maintain a level of being able to serve, I had to service myself first. And so I think that's a huge element. People that commit suicide, they put themselves get pushed in a corner, and they're not communicating with other people. Mm-hmm. You got to talk. I want to tell people, you got to tell it. Right. You got to tell it. You got to tell somebody. You can't hold it to yourself. We weren't created to hold stuff in. We were created to be co-community. We were created that way. We're not created to be alone. We're not created. I want to say this to people that, people want to hold things in, or I better not tell it. No, you got to tell it. There comes a time when you have to tell it, mm-hmm, especially when you see something not right. When you see something that is wrong, mm-hmm, you got to tell it. Yeah. People have this mindset, well, you can't snitch, you can't. No, there's a time when you got to tell it. Mm-hmm. You have to tell it. I'll say this, and I'll be quiet, but I think that our nation and our world that we live in, I think harm has been done to our communities, our nation, with integrity, with morality, all of this, because people don't stand up and tell it. They don't say what they know is right. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't say anything, then I think you're part of the problem. I agree. And so, in closing, I'll just say that take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't allow the pressures of life to isolate you. That is the worst thing you could do, is to isolate yourself. And I think with my own life, whether it was the military or getting in the military, I always shared what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. I would tell somebody, I would talk to somebody, because we're helpers one to another, and we're limited in our own capabilities to help ourselves out of some stuff, right, psychologically, emotionally. And even in just that element of talking brings healing to you. Right. It empowers you when you share it. Right. And so I would say, in a nutshell, I think that you have to make sure every aspect of your life, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, are balanced. Mm-hmm. You have to have a balance. It's about balance, having a balanced life and giving back. Yeah.
You brought up two keywords that I wanted to dive into a little bit more. So, when people are dealing with trauma, and going overseas and, fighting in combat, that's a type of trauma. And then, I think there's a lot of people that in life that have experienced some type of trauma,
right.
And whether or not it was a physical or a mental,
right.
an emotional, there's a mental and emotional can be just as traumatic as a physical.
Absolutely.
Which I don't think was spoken really at all about, over the 80s and, 90s yes. and
right.
prior. Because sometimes, if someone gets shot,
right.
Sometimes that heals faster, or, you go to a physician right away, you get that stitched up and medicine and out whatever you need because it's visible, right? When there's mental and emotional trauma, and I know my dad experienced this because he was in Vietnam, right? There was a lot of mental and emotional trauma there that wasn't spoken about. So, PTSD, things like that. If someone's dealing with that type of trauma, what would you say, what type of things should they be working out in their process?
I would say that, going back to counseling, telling it, you have to, you could grow up in your family and experience trauma.
Absolutely.
Kids grow up in families every day. The environment is very combative. It's very emotionally combative. No hands are being laid on anybody, but it's so argumentative, it's so verbally combative that the children are traumatized.
Yes.
Children are emotionally traumatized.
Yes.
And they haven't been touched, but the environment was so toxic. They held in so much that they're traumatized. They need counseling. That's trauma. That's a form of trauma. I mean, we could go on and on, husbands and wives. Some women are not abused physically, but they're traumatized, traumatized emotionally, traumatized mentally, but they've not been touched. But they were so traumatized, and it could work vice versa. Men have been traumatized by their spouses. Bosses with employees have been bullied. Children being traumatized in schools. All of this needs to be addressed because your emotional, mental state is very important in you being a whole person and you being a healthy person. So I'm a big support of getting emotional support, getting mental, emotional help, not being afraid to share your stories with someone, getting professional counseling. Don't be afraid to go see a therapist if you need to. Don't be afraid to share your experience with a best friend or a session when you get group therapy. It's so important that you are mentally sound and you're healthy and you're emotionally whole. I didn't learn a lot of this until later in my life. You could have symptoms of trauma and not even realize that you've been traumatized. Why? Because a lot of times people bury their trauma. And usually they act out what was done to them and not even realize it. It happened years ago when you were a lad, when you were a young kid growing up, and you never dealt with that trauma that happened to you. And so when we talk about trauma, that covers so many bases. But the beautiful thing, you can make that something that could have killed you emotionally. You can turn your tombstone into a stepping stone, and you can be a better person. You can grow from it. You can overcome it, and you can help somebody else.
Absolutely. To
overachieve in areas of their lives that they've been traumatized. And I'll say this in closing, that we all have been traumatized. Everybody's been traumatized in some way or another. And I think I said this before you start begin filming, but it's how you deal with life when life happens on you. And it doesn't matter where you are in life. You could have been born into wealth. You could have been a child that were born into parents that were millionaires, or it doesn't matter. But even they too experience trauma of some sort. Nobody escapes life. Life happens to the rich, to the poor alike. But you just mentioned some names that were very rich, but they had everything they had money. Money was not an issue. But what happened? They jumped out of a window. but they were rich.
Yeah.
So it lets you know that suicide and trauma happens to everybody, but it's how you deal with it. And when people lose hope, they feel like there's nothing else to live for.
Yeah.
So I think it's imperative. What do we learn from this? I'll say one is take care of yourself first. And then two, if you see somebody that looks traumatized, if you see somebody that needs help, if you see somebody that's acting abnormal, go to them and ask them, are you okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is something that we were taught in the military, but I think that on the civilian side, we need to learn how to ask people, are you okay?
For sure.
And you take them to lunch, or you take them out, are you all right?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? Talk to me.
Right.
So I think that we need to push that word out, that don't sit back and watch when you sense that somebody is not acting right. There's something abnormal going on with my coworker.
Absolutely.
And you know they're not right.
Yeah.
Something in your gut's telling you something's wrong.
I agree.
So I think in life, we are a lifeline. And sometimes it's sitting right in front of us every day. But do we just harden our hearts that we just don't care?
Right.
No, I think that we owe it to help other people and help others that may be thinking about suicide.
Right.
You never know.
Yeah.
Who's thinking what?
Yeah.
Can I share this experience? There was a young soldier that deployed with us. And I knew him, I was familiar with him. So we come back stateside and we were working at our unit on orders. And so I was responsible for these 4 soldiers and we were working on a task and he wasn't responding. And so being the leader, I got on him. I corrected him. I, in essence, was saying, get your head in the game. What's going on? And then I was just observing him. I noticed that something's not right with him. This is not the way he normally acts. So I talked to his peers. I said, what's going on with this soldier? And they told me what was going on. He said, there was some challenges. And then I took him by myself with just me and him, no one else around. And I said, talk to me. What is going on? What's going on with you? And that's when he confessed that he tried to kill himself. So I think that was a big lesson for me, and it's a big lesson for anybody that's hearing this, that reach out to people that, you know, you may sense that are going through something traumatic. It may not be as extreme as suicide, but maybe it's something that's really, you know, touching them at the core and they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think in life people fold or they give up or they quit because they need help.
Right.
They just need a few words of encouragement. They just need some direction or guidance.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be long. It just, maybe they need to be connected to the right source.
Right.
The resource that could help them through the little quagmire that they're in.
Yeah.
Our challenge is not as big and big as what we think they are. Just to us, it's big because we don't know what to do.
Right.
But there's people that know how to tell you how to get from point A, point B, point C, and get you out of that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think.
You made me just think of when you were sharing that story. So I don't know if you remember this story or not, but Robin Williams, the comedian,
of course,
you know, he committed suicide.
Of course, yeah.
And he's one of those people that, you know, people that didn't even know him, you know, that weren't in his daily life, when they met him on the street or, you know, any of the many movies and sitcoms he did.
Right.
You know, I remember growing up watching Mork and Mindy and
of
just
course,
thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is brilliant.
Of course.
He's funny.
Of course.
You know, his personality came through the TV screen.
Yes.
And I've been a huge fan, you know, my whole life. And when, you know, the story came out and premiered on the news that he had committed suicide, it was kind of an eye-opening, you know, story for a lot of people that, oh my gosh, he seemed fine. You know, no one knew he was in turmoil and, you know, just devastated.
Right.
You know, I think it's one of those things where a lot of times we'll put on this persona of, we're fine, we're good.
Yes.
You know, everything's great. But yeah, it's super important, you know, for people to actually have people around you that, like you were saying with that soldier, you know, it was a little off, you know.
Right.
And some people, you know, and I've you know, been around people where they'll know you.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a family member or something that knows you really well, and they'll just come over and they'll be like, "Get your ish together," you know, without sitting down and going, "Hey, what's going on?"
Absolutely.
You know, and I think because I was actually talking with a friend of mine who's a middle school teacher around the holidays, and she said that over the past year during COVID and things like that, that there's been so many situations where she's heard of students that are contemplating suicide or attempting suicide, just in her classroom, you know, and she has a small classroom, she's in a public school.
Right.
So I think, you know, and I have teenagers, you know, I have adult kids.
Right.
You know, I think that as parents, that's something that we have to really now pay attention to.
Sure.
And sometimes, you know, our kids I've had my kids tell me, you know, where they're like, "I'm fine," you know, but I know something's off. And sometimes people that we're related to, we don't really want to or feel like we can have that conversation with those people. So, you know, I think it's important to have a lot of people, you know, around that you can go and speak to someone that you feel like, you know, you have a space available to talk with about that. So if we can speak to a little bit about, you know, leaders in the community and whether we're a team leader or we're a business owner or an entrepreneur or mom or dad, you know, we're leading other people. And when we're hitting the front lines of life, per se, you know, you have to develop a certain mindset when, you know, we're under fire, and when you get deployed, and, you know, things pivot very quickly, you know, as we saw in the pandemic, you know, that shifted very, very quickly. And I don't think any of us expected, you know, it was like kind of like the thing of movies. Right, of course. You know, no one thought that would ever happen in the United States or the world or, you know, our small towns. So what would you recommend for people to kind of set themselves up in with their mindset? Because knowing, you know, I mean, we're all dealing with life, and at some point we're all going to be dealing with something where we're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the front line right now." Right. You know, so if you can speak to something, you know, regarding mindset and kind of like, because, you know, like you were saying, where it's exercising, you know, you got to make sure that you're consistent with that, because when, you know, it, like in the military, when you're, if you haven't gone and you know, run consistently every day, and now you're running towards the front line or shifting the front line, you know, you're not going to make it because you haven't trained yourself that way. That's it. But besides that physical aspect, there's a mental aspect of it as well. Sure, absolutely. Well, I think you said in a nutshell, you know, there's a saying that stay ready so that you don't have to get ready. Yeah. And I think in life, you know, you should always prepare. You should always, you know, stay in preparation. You should always stay in training mode, because you never know when things are going to happen. And that's just not from a monetary standpoint of view. We often hear, you know, make sure you have savings, make sure you have money stayed away. And sure, yeah, you do need to always have that aspect, but that goes in every area of your life. I think what happens too much, you know, there's a saying that in the time of peace, prepare for war, right? So it is with life. In a time of peace, when things are going A-okay, you should always be in a mode of preparation and training. Yeah. Always. And you should never allow yourself to get relaxed. You know, even when you may think you have it all together, nothing just stays together or the same. You know, this world is constantly changing. They say, you know, as we say here in America, that freedom is not free. Right. And it's not. You know, we always have soldiers all around the world, planted, ready to fight. You know, we enjoy the freedoms here. We go to McDonald's, we go to Frosty, you know, the local restaurants. We're enjoying the freedoms in this nation. But you have soldiers and sailors and Marines all around the world making sure that we keep our freedoms. Right. So it is with us as individuals.
okay? We have to stay ready. We have to stay prepared. We have to be willing to always take the extra, step to safeguard ourselves in every aspect of life. I think every day there are opportunities that will come to every person that can say, hey, listen, this is going to stretch you a little bit, but this is an opportunity to better yourself physically. Mm-hmm. This is another opportunity. Your business is doing great, but you get this opportunity to maybe get more education, or you get the opportunity to meet some other businessmen. Right? Every day, I believe miracles come our way every day. Opportunities come our way every day. But we get comfortable and we think that, oh, things are great. Right. I don't need no more education. I don't need any more friends. I don't need to network anymore. I don't need to get a website. I don't need to keep up with technology. I'm good. I got money coming in. The customers are great. Mm-hmm. Not looking in the future, not looking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, because what you're doing now is not going to be 5 years from now. Of course. Especially with technology. Right. Okay, with artificial intelligence, with, it's so much that is coming down the pipe in the next 20 years. It's going to be a totally different world that we live in. Mm-hmm. So are you preparing for the next 20 years? Have you done research to find out in your sphere of influence in your work, in your what your business is, how is it projected to look in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Yeah. So do you wait to start preparing then? No, you start preparing now for that, what's coming down the pipe in the next 20 years. Yeah. And so you do the hard stuff now. And you should always be doing the hard stuff, because that's just a part of being prepared for the storms that are coming. Because the storms are going to come. Yes. It's not if they're going to come. They are going to come. Right. And so the person that is equipped and prepared will be prepared when the storms of life come, because they have been diligent to make sure that they are well equipped in every area of their life. So preparation is the key. Being willing to take a risk is the key. Researching is the key, right? Staying in the know. Surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. Mm-hmm. Networking with people that are levels higher above. So, because I always say this, you are who you hang out with, right? If you're always hanging around chickens, well, you're going to be pecking them around. True. So if you want to hang around eagles, you better get with some eagles, because eagles are able to. What do eagles do? What makes the eagle so much different from the regular bird or a chicken? Well, the eagles, you know what they do when the storm comes? They fly to the storm. Mm-hmm. They're so majestic that they fly towards the storm. And they use the wind in a storm to soar. And to soar way above the storm. They can soar for miles. They can soar. So that's the difference between an eagle and a chicken. Yeah. All right? Eagles soar. They're majestic birds. And in the Christian faith, God is referred to as an eagle. And the lion, it's all about your attitude. Very much. Your attitude is, I've always heard, is to determine your altitude in life. So a lion is the king of the jungle. Well, you ask, well, why do they call him the king of the jungle? You got the elephant, which is really huge, a massive animal. You have giraffe, is really a massive animal. You have the alligator, he's got pretty big teeth. You have the snake who can squeeze somebody. Why is he the chosen one? He's a chosen one because of his attitude. Mm-hmm. He walks around, he says, I can eat what I want to eat. And I'm going to eat what I want to eat. Yeah. Now, he's not the smartest animal. Okay. He's certainly not the strongest animal. Hippopotamus, the elephant, they're stronger than a lion. Mm-hmm. But a lion just believes that he's the king. Yeah. And he's the king. Yeah. And so when he goes out to hunt every day, I just imagine him saying, hey, chap, what do you want to eat today? I think I want some elephant. Okay, let's go get it. Yeah. And when the elephant sees a lion, they say, oh my God, I'm lunch for the lion. See, that's his attitude. Yeah. He sees himself as lunch. So he's lunch.
Yeah, that's true.
So in essence, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, so is he.
Yeah.
So you become what you think you are. So preparation is very important. Preparation is tough. It takes discipline. Nobody wants to prepare, right? Boxers and athletes, they don't like getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to run and to train. They don't like doing that. But they do it because they want to compete in the next 4 years. Right. They want to get the goal. You know, you got to ask yourself, do you want the goal in life? Yeah. Do you want to win in life? Do you want your children's children to have a legacy? Yeah. Well, you have to pay the price for that. It's not just going to come because you want it. Right. We have too many people that want it, but they don't want to do the stuff to get it. And then they'll look at you and think, oh, wow, you just got all this stuff. They don't realize what you went through to get that.
All the training.
A lot of training, a lot of hours, a lot of grueling that you have to go through, and they can get it too. Right. But you have to be willing to put in the work. Yeah. And so it takes constant preparation. I don't believe nobody should ever have the mindset to retire. I think that life is constant until you take your last breath. So no matter what state or age that you're in, what season that you're in, there's always something to do. If it's just you're 99 years old and maybe you can just have a reading session with some other things. I mean, there's always something that you're to do until the good Lord takes you out of here. And so, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's a saying, and it's true. If you don't use your body, your mind, your spirit, your gift that God gave you, you'll lose those gifts. You know, I think that I think they're always there, but they're dormant. But if you don't use them, they won't be effective. Yeah. So you're to always in life use a life. Life is a gift. It's the present. Live in the present and treat it like a present, because you can't go back and get yesterday. You can't go back and get tomorrow. Do what you can do right now today. Take advantage of every opportunity that's given you, because you may look for that opportunity tomorrow. It may not be there. Yes. So seize the moment. Take risk. Step out on faith. Believe. Have trust. Follow your gut. Follow the truth. And the truth, if you do those things, you'll land on your feet. And it may be tough, but you got to say, I'm the lion in the jungle of life. Yeah. You got to see yourself as a lion. Yeah. Even when the bills are due. Even when people say you're not going to make it. Even when it's pressure. I'm the lion. Doesn't matter. I'm the lion. Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story. I was getting my master's at the time, and I was an average student. And I said, you know what? I woke up one day and said, I'm tired of being an average student. I want to see what it feels like to be an A student. So I just said, I'm an A student. I'm an A student today. Yeah, I'm an A student. That's it. And I just made up in my mind that's what I was. I didn't try to figure it out. Didn't have any, I'm going to study 100 hours a week. I just said that was my attitude. That's what I am, period. Yeah. And so time went on and I put in the work, and I shall never forget it. It was at what point I was trying to finish. And I took 7 graduate classes in 1 quarter. Oof,
that's a lot.
And I made all A's. I just believed I was an A student. I believed it. And it's just like the bumblebee. The bumblebee's body weight is too big for her to fly. Her wingspan is too short to carry her weight. But she don't listen to the naysayers. She flies anyway. Yeah. And she may zigzag a little bit. Maybe she doesn't fly like the hummingbird, but she flying, right? Okay. She defies gravity because she believed. So the power of belief. The power of belief. If you believe it, you can achieve it. So the moral of that story is always take risks. Always believe in yourself. It doesn't matter what the odds say. Believe in yourself and say that to yourself. I think that it's important that you affirm to yourself that you're a winner. You affirm that you're an overachiever, that you can and you will achieve despite the odds that you face in your life and business or whatever have you. What you say is what you're going to get. And so if you're willing to put the action behind the work, the strategy, it'll come to you. Maybe it won't come the first time. You get knocked down, we'll get back up. Keep trying. You fail forward. And you learn as you fail. You learn a little bit more on what not to do and what to do. Pretty soon you're going to perfect it. Yeah. You're going to figure it out. You know, I'll never forget, I heard someone, it was an NBA championship team that they lost 8 championships before they even won their first championship. One of the players were really frustrated. You let them know that. You got to keep going. You're going to get knocked down, but you got to get back up.
Yeah.
You always prepare.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you personally, you have your own business.
Yes.
And you're a coach.
Yes.
So if you want to talk about that a little bit, about what you're doing with the community and kind of, what you're, you're not in the Army presently,
right?
But you're still serving,
right?
So if you want to go ahead and share, what that looks like for you and what you're offering.
Yeah, what it looks like for me is like when I joined the basic training. It's all over, starting all over again. It's like, wow, this is really new. It's different. It's not what I thought it was going to be, and it's really not. It's not for the timid. It's not for the weak. It's not for that. So I come to realize it's not going to happen overnight. Come to realize that I'm going to have to adapt and overcome in my mindset and adjust myself to be in this for the long game. I've come to realize that, you come into things and it looks glamorous on the outside,
It always does.
Yeah, everybody does these Ferraris, they get money, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And so people that have attained success in the business world, they worked hard. Mm-hmm. They've earned it. It's taken them years to build it. And you don't hear this. People don't just come out and say this, but it takes time. And so I've had to readjust myself. I'm not giving up, but I've had to readjust. And I'm having to do some things that I want to do, but that's life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you must adjust and do some things that you don't want to do in order to get what you want. Now, this has been a lifelong goal. I've been wanting to be an entrepreneur since I was in high school. And so now I'm getting to the moment where I'm exercising that dream, that vision. That's many, many moons ago, many years ago. Yeah. But it doesn't matter when. It's just that, it's time, but it's going to take more time than I thought. And I'm going to have to do some things to make that happen. So I'm a leadership consultant coach. I also do motivational speaking. I've created a curriculum. Okay, so.
And then you also do speaking at universities and at lower grade levels as well.
I've opened up to that because I've gotten so many requests to, have I ever considered speaking into young adults, and I just pursued that because I take those little clues that maybe that's something I need to do. Mm-hmm. And so I even go now, some of the young entrepreneurs in my office, they wanted to start a young entrepreneurs session. So we've been doing some sessions with these young men that from 23 to 35 or whatever, they just felt the need to need some mentoring. And so I think there's a lot of young men out there, they want more. They want to know more about life than just making money. Yeah. They want to know, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean? Because the culture of today is showing our young men there are many ways that you can function, but they're not really telling them the right way. Yeah. So, it's all about using all of the experiences that I've had to make a difference, to help other people. And so coaching, motivational speaking, and inspirational speaking, sharing my story, and training on different aspects of cohesiveness and leadership. I bring these to corporations, profit and nonprofit. And then there are a lot of other entrepreneurial concepts that I have that I want to implement, but this is really what I have a passion for.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you have a website.
Yes. Where
would we go if people are interested in booking you?
Yeah, you can go to dare2dreamlive.com or dare2dreamlcf.com.
Awesome.
And that stands for Leadership Consulting Firm.
Perfect.
Right.
So what I'll do is, if you're watching or you're listening, I'm going to go ahead and put that in a link as well, directly, so they can just click the link and find you, book you and have you come out and speak and share your experiences, your stories, to help encourage others and get some training, because, that is super huge, getting training in, businesses and companies, it's super it's kind of a, you know, it's not an instant thing where you flick the switch and it's all better,
right?
You know, but it is a process, like you were sharing, you know. But if you don't start the process, you're just going to be running circles in the same place you've been for the past. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I super appreciate you coming and, you know, sharing your stories and your journey. I have a feeling we'll probably do another one of these, you know, in the future. Sure. Because I feel like you have more stories, you know, on your journey. Sure. So, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.